you're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
Give me a full ballerina skirt and a hint of saloon, and I'm on board.
I can't go back.
Welcome to the She Became Visible podcast. I'm your host, Renee Steelman. This podcast is my story. It's your story. It's our story. It's all the stories of all the women who one day knew that it was time to remember who they were, who they are, and stand up and be seen. Hello, welcome to She Became Visible. I am Renee Steelman, your host, and I just wanted to share some ideas with you. As the political process is speeding up and becoming more intense, there are more ideas being thrown out as to how we can reshape America, how we can put America back on its axis and back into its place of dominion over the entire world. There's a lot of talk about women's roles, and there is a very large movement right now called the Christian nationalist movement. Now, a lot of people are also calling it the white Christian nationalist movement because it is being primarily headed by white men, white heterosexual men, and they are here to enlighten us and to remind us as women of what our roles are and why the world is going to hell. Obviously, it is our fault because we have forgotten what our roles are. So today in my podcast, She Became Visible, I'm going to be reminding you of a couple of the things that have been taught and share a little of my personal experience as a woman having grown up in a fundamental religion where I was told what my role is and what my purpose in life is. So let me start out by just reminding you of this little cute thing. It's just so fun.
Ladies and gentlemen of the class of 2024, you are sitting at the edge of the rest of your lives. Each of you has the potential to leave a legacy that transcends yourselves and this era of human existence. In the small ways, by living out your vocation, you will ensure that God's church continues and the world is enlightened by your example. For the ladies present today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all that you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross this stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother.
So we're just going to stop right there. So this was given a few months back, and this was not an awakening because I was already very aware of the Christian nationalist movement, but I wasn't familiar with Harrison Butker. I don't watch football, okay? And so when I heard this, and it reminded me of what I was told in 1987. 1987. Now, at the time in 1987, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had 6 children. My youngest child was 2. And this is what I heard my leaders, my prophets who spoke for God, they were over a pulpit telling me this.
Heaven, I would like to speak directly to the mothers assembled here and throughout the church. For you are, or should be, the very heart and soul of the family. No more sacred word exists in secular or holy writ than that of mother. There is no more noble work than that of a good and God-fearing mother. This evening, I pay tribute to mothers in Zion and pray with all my heart that what I have to say to you will be understood by the Spirit and will lift and bless your lives in your sacred callings as mothers.
So basically, what this man, his name is Ezra Taft Benson, he was the prophet at the time. Now, in the Mormon church, a prophet is believed to literally speak for God. So when they stand up at a pulpit and speak words, give a lecture, it is interpreted as directly advice that God is giving to us. President Benson, as he is known in the Mormon church, told the women to come home from their typewriters, to come home from their offices and be home and have children, as many children as you can physically have. These were the words from President Benson. Now, at the time, my youngest, as I mentioned, was around 2, and he had a very difficult birth and had some birth defects when he was born. But because of words like this, I was considering adoption. I thought, well, we don't have enough. We have 6 children, but I should have more, but I can't have any more. So maybe we should start adopting. That's how intense this teaching was. Now, that was in 1987. And as I grew and as I matured and as I began to develop my entire frontal cortex, I realized that as much as I loved being a mother, as much as I wanted every single one of my babies, I had other talents and gifts that I wanted to pursue. So what I'm going to share with you now is a keynote speech that I gave in 2018 to a group of women entrepreneurs. And I think having this little bit of background, you will be able to hear the frustration in my voice. Now, at the time in 2018, I was still a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I had no idea that a few years later, I would resign my membership and leave the church completely. But it was the beginning of my awakening. I, at the time, was actually a worker in the Portland Temple. I became a worker in the Portland Temple because I could not go as a patron. I could not go and just sit and participate in the temple ceremonies because I was so frustrated with the misogynistic views that were being taught. We were literally told to bow our heads and say yes to obey our husbands. Not love, just obey. And we were told that our husbands would speak to God for us, and then our husbands would then tell us what God wants us to do, just like these men are doing. We were to go to the men to be told what we should be doing with our lives and what God wanted from us. When did women decide that it was okay to have everything about our lives told to us by men? Doctors, preachers, husbands, fathers. This was the indoctrination that women were told, that our lives would be directed by men. So let me play this for you. And I'm curious, we'll talk a little bit afterwards, if you can begin to maybe hear the frustration in my voice. But my message was, I realized at that time that the women who worked, as well as being mothers, were serving their community and their families through their role as mothers and also in their careers. So I hope you enjoy this.
to be here with you ladies tonight, and I really appreciate the invitation from Ronnie. Amy, I don't know you, so I don't have any background with you, but as Ronnie said, I do know her a little bit, and I've been blessed to be able to hear her keynote presentation, so I know a little bit about her background. And I have to say that I have such respect and admiration for Ronnie, and I think she truly embodies what we are as women as far as persistence and determination, and I'm just really impressed with everything that she's achieved, and I'm pleased to be in your presence, as they say. So I think, especially because of our surroundings, I feel like this is a very close-knit group. And if we could get rid of the tables, we'd all be just sitting on the floor, really having a great night of chatting and getting to know one another. So I don't have a profound message. I don't want to burden all of you with a lot of profound things that you need to be hurriedly taking down, notes that you should be taking, and efforts to change your life or to change your mindset or completely change everything that you've been doing for the last 50 years, which is the way we go away from some of these self-help speeches where we're determined to change and be a better person, and then you walk in the door and the backpacks are on the floor and the dog hasn't been fed, and that all goes out the window, and you're like, ah, you just kind of go back to what you're used to. But I am going to ask you to do one thing, and it's not to stand up and turn around and hug your neighbor. I hate that kind of stuff. But I am going to ask you to put a smile on your face. And the reason I'm going to ask you to do that is because science has proven that when you have a smile on your face, you look 10 years younger. Now, I'm not kidding you. This is research. This has been scientifically proven that when people see someone with a smile on their face, they are perceived to be younger than their chronological age. So look at all the money we'll be saving on Botox, right? So that's all I'm asking you to do, is to put a smile on your face for tonight. So I know that for some of you, just coming to this event this evening took a lot of effort. For some of you, it took a military-like strategic planning. I mean, you may feel like Patton by the time you got here. It's like, did I invade France or did I just come for a couple of hours to get away? I recognize that feeling because I know what it's like to get out of the house. And running a home is very similar to running a business, isn't it? But the difference is, in the home, you're completely working with a dysfunctional force, right? You also can't fire anyone, and you will also never retire. I'm just telling you right now, there is no end. In fact, when my husband was ready to retire, we kind of got into a few arguments because, as Ronnie mentioned, I am the sole caretaker for my son, who will be 33 in December. And I said to him, you don't get to retire until I get to retire. And the reason I had that reaction is because he was so excited about this new chapter that he was going to have in his life. He was talking about golf. He was talking about all the things he was going to get to do because he was retired. And I was like, oh, really? Do you need to get a babysitter for you to go to that golf game? So that was kind of the feeling that we had. There was a lot of contention over the fact that he got to retire. Now, how many of you live with someone or are retired yourselves? Okay.
You mean live with someone who's
live with someone who is retired, or you have retired yourself? What was that like? It
was really tough when my husband retired, because I was like, hey, you get to retire. I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
I could totally relate.
Yeah. And what about you? You had your hand raised.
Same thing.
Yeah. You were still working, but your husband was retired.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an age difference with my husband, too. So
Right.
he's
Right.
older.
The thing that I found the most difficult was the fact that he was home.
Yeah.
That was the most difficult. I mean, my husband left we were married on a Friday. He was back at work on Monday. He worked 6 in the morning till at least 6 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday, often Saturdays, and usually half day on Sunday. He worked construction. And if all of you know construction, there are no hours. No one can control plane wrecks, train wrecks, storms, things like that. So I was kind of used to him, we had a schedule. He left at 6 o'clock in the morning and I did whatever I wanted to. And nobody asked me where I was going or what time I'd be back or any of those minor details. Suddenly I have this guy at my house going, "What are you doing today? What time are you going to be home?" And I'm like, I don't know. Why are you asking me these questions? But anyway, so running a home is very difficult. And I want you to know that the home itself is something that I think we don't understand really what the purpose of our homes are. We take for granted that our homes are a place where we store our belongings. Our homes are a place where we rest our heads, where we watch Netflix, where we pull our cars into a driveway and we have a safe place to put our things. But I don't think we really understand what our homes mean to us. From the time that we were brought home as infants, we were brought into a home of some kind. And we all recognize that families today look different than they did in the past. So whatever your family dynamic was, however your family was set up, as an infant, you were brought into some kind of home environment. And that environment taught you many things. And whether you know it or not, it really did shape your future. Now, many of you might say, I had a loving home. I learned hierarchy. I learned delegation. I learned what a role was, how to be a team player. I learned service. I learned gratitude. I learned that I had value. I learned that my presence, just my presence, was important, and that I played a part in this organization called a family. Many of you might look at those things and say, I didn't have any of those experiences in my home. And what I want to tell you tonight is that whether you look back on your childhood or your past home life with joy, or whether you look back and you see anger or fear or resentment, whatever it was you experienced has value. And you will learn, and you have learned from all of those experiences. I was driving in my car and I heard one of Oprah's Soul Sunday podcasts. And I heard this person talk about abuse. And she said, I learned that I needed to thank the person that had abused me, because he had taught me a lesson that I could have not learned maybe any other way. And I remember being startled and looking at the radio and did I hear this correctly? But it made me think of gratitude in an entirely different way. And it made me think about the feelings that I was experiencing that day. For the entire reason I was listening to this podcast was because I was having some conflicting feelings about someone in my family. And when I realized all of the lessons that I had learned because of the experience that I had had growing up with this person, I realized the gift that they had given me. And it changed my whole attitude. And it changed my whole outlook on what gratitude really is. But getting back to our homes, I think one of the things that we learn as a member of a family is that we have a gift, we have a talent, we have a value. And a lot of times those three things are put in different order, and we're told that those things all rely on the other thing. You have value if you pursue this gift, or if you pursue this talent. And so a lot of times when we think about what we want to be when we grow up, we think about them with a value. How much value does this profession have? If I say I'm a lawyer, does that have more value than if I own a grocery store? If I say I'm a brain surgeon, does that have more value than if I sell vacuum cleaners? And what I want you to go home with tonight is the understanding that whatever it is you do, it has value. And whatever it is you do, you are providing a service. The other day I was listening to, or I was watching a YouTube. And how many of you have seen the new David Letterman talk show that he has on, I think it's on Netflix. Can't remember. He was interviewing Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld was interviewing him as well. They were asking each other questions back and forth. And David, very humbly, because you know that's what happens when you get old. You start looking back and you start reminiscing and going, well, you know, I didn't do everything I could have done. The kind of things you hear old people say, oh, I should have been a better father, or I should have done this, I should have done that. And David was saying, what I have done in my life has no value. I really haven't contributed to the world. And Jerry Seinfeld said, are you kidding me? Do you really think that's true? And he said, yes, I think that's true. And he said, you don't value your talent. He said, you went into people's homes, you made them laugh, you gave them a break from whatever it is they were going through. You changed television. You completely changed the way television is. Your talent contributed to the world. And you could see the look on David Letterman's face. He was like, really? It changed his whole person. It was amazing. And it was funny that I had flipped onto that because I was thinking and preparing for this today. And it made me realize that, you know, how many of you knew what you wanted to be when you grew up? How many of you can honestly say, when I was 3, I knew that I was going to be a real estate agent? I knew that I was going to be a naturopath. I mean, that was my goal. I knew that. How many of you feel like you're working in the profession that you thought you would be working in even in college? How many of you are working in the profession that your degree is? Yeah, Amy's kind of a little bit. Well, you know, I knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I can honestly tell you that when I was growing up, I wanted to be a mom. Honestly, that is the only profession that I wanted. I never even considered anything else in the world. I had dolls, I had babies, I played with them, I made noises. My mom would come in and say, there's a baby crying in here? What's going on? I loved babysitting. I was a good babysitter. I could not wait to have children. In fact, I wanted 10. The young. We're so naive, aren't we? We're just so naive. They're like puppies. Nobody tells you that they turn into teenagers. But anyway. So my husband and I got married. And of course, like I said, he went back to work on Monday. And I went to work, you know, the profession that I wanted to pursue. Anyway, it took me a while. But eventually we did have our first child. And then we had our second child. And then we had our third. And then we had our fourth. And then we had our fifth. And remember, I was working on 10. And after I had my fifth, I had a miscarriage. And when I went to the doctor, he said, would you be interested in birth control? And are you guys ready for this? My kids are about 22 months apart. I have a couple 18-monthers in there. I said, I don't think I'm that fertile. I thought I was in total control. I thought I was controlling my life. I thought I had control of my life. I thought I had control of my home. I love the quote that says, man makes a plan and God laughs, right? So we had our sixth, and the entire time I was carrying this baby, I had this feeling that this was going to be my last. I looked at my 9-year-old, my oldest, and I knew that this was a lot. We were doing a lot. And I just decided that maybe this would be, 6 was a good number. We would stop at 6. Now I had all of my 5 children naturally. I had them in a naturopath clinic. I brought them home 24 hours after they were born. That's kind of how I like to do it. But when I went into labor with my 6th, it was a completely different story. Needless to say, he had a very complicated birth, and it ended up being an emergency C-section. And when he was born, they discovered that he had a hole in his diaphragm and that all of his intestines and lower organs were floating up into the chest cavity. And that didn't give his lungs the space that they needed to grow. So he only had one lung that was functioning. And right before they let him come home from the hospital, he spent about a month at Oregon Health Science. And right before they discharged him, they did an EEG, and they did say, we have found brain damage. But we don't know what that means, because a lot of times in infants, they can reroute and go through different areas. So here's your baby. Good luck. See you later. So this little guy changed our lives forever. Completely changed our home, completely changed my relationship as a mother with my other 5 children. It completely changed the trajectory that I thought I had my life all mapped out and was planning on doing. What I didn't realize at the time was that I had a love of design. I thought that what I did in my home was what every woman does, to nest or to make a home for your family. What I didn't realize was that it was a calling. I could not stop thinking about design. But here's the problem. If you go to school and you get a degree in law, and then after you've passed the bar and you've been working at a law office somewhere, you decide, you know, I enjoyed building those houses when I was in college. I'm going to go back and get into construction. You know, your law degree doesn't go to waste. It's a very useful tool. Everything that you learn by going to college is very useful, and you have the freedom to change your career. But when your career is raising 6 children and you decide that now you'd like to be an interior designer, you can't exactly ship the kids off and say, it was nice knowing you, thanks for the experience, I really learned a lot, but I'm going to go do something else now. So the dream that I had of being an interior designer was a little bit like, how am I going to get this done? I also questioned whether being an interior designer had value. Is this the kind of field that people really respect? Do people really need interior designers? Isn't that just for the frivolous, for the people that have more money and time than they know what to do with? Do we really need interior designers? But what I've discovered is that when you do something that you love, that love that you have transfers over to the people that you're serving. And it no longer becomes a profession, it becomes a service project out of love. And I learned what love was by caring for my son. Truly, I love my husband, I love all of my children, but the love that I have for my son, that I bathe and dress and shave and pick up and put in his wheelchair every single day, is a love that can only be described by service. Mahatma Gandhi has a quote that I absolutely love, and I want to make sure that I get it right, so I'm going to read it. But it's a quote that I've heard from many other people, including in the Bible and other religious people. But Gandhi says, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And what I want to tell you is, one day, when I realized what love truly was, as I was bathing my son, and I just got chills. And I had that feeling in my stomach, the feeling that you had when you thought, you know, I want to be a real estate agent, or I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be an event planner. Whatever it is you thought you wanted to be, and you were so excited about it. You couldn't even sleep. You were just so excited that you had found the thing that you loved. And I realized that I had had a very similar experience with a friend of mine who had had to move out of her home because she was going to be going through a divorce. And she called me up and she said, would you help me rearrange my apartment? And I said, sure. Give me the keys to your apartment, and while you're gone at work, I'll go over and rearrange your apartment. And so while she was gone, I rearranged her furniture, ran and got a slip cover for her sofa, a few accessories and wall art, just something to brighten it up. And when she came home, she said, "I can't thank you enough. I needed to have a place where I could find peace and solitude because I know the next few months are going to be chaos." And another quote that I love is that design is so important because chaos is so hard. So I no longer looked at my profession as something frivolous, something that was taking time away from my family. I looked at it with value. And I knew that I could love design just as much as I loved my family and my children, and that it was okay. So what I want you to do today is to value what you do. And you know the saying that people say, if you love what you do, it's not a job. But I want to tell you to love your job and learn to love what you do because it has value. Whether you're a bookkeeper, whether you clean homes for a living, whether you're a janitor, whether you're a cook, whatever your occupation, you are providing a service. And when you look at your service like that as a way of showing love, suddenly your profession is just as important as flying water to Puerto Rico or brain surgery or all of the other things that we look at as charitable. And we think, well, I don't do enough for the world. I'm just one bookkeeper in Vancouver, Washington. What am I doing to serve people? But if you understood what you did created peace for your clients, they're trying to run a business. They're trying to provide a home for their family. They need you. What you do is important for them to keep that business open. And when you look at your job with that kind of respect and love, it completely changes your outlook in life. So I appreciate this opportunity to be with you ladies who value your homes, you value your families, but you also value your love and your drive and the talents and the gifts that you've been given. So thank you for this opportunity.
So that was a really great group of women. I miss that organization in Washington, but I loved and I still believe the message that I gave that day, that you can pursue your career. You can pursue your talents. Maybe you don't have a career that brings in a lot of money. Maybe it's just something that you express your talents with, and that you don't need to feel guilty over that. You don't need to feel as though the time that you take away from cleaning or cooking or driving children to different things, that maybe if you've had to have someone else do that, you don't need to feel guilty because the other things that you are doing, they are also love and service. And that's where we get these messages from these men. They're so convoluted. They're so wrong. You don't understand the nature of women. Women are so beautiful, and they are cognitively able to multitask and do so many things at the same time, including love and nurture in the home, outside of the home, in the community, and taking care of themselves. So thank you for this opportunity to share this little keynote that I had. And I hope that it encourages you to remember that you have value, you have purpose, and it's okay. It's okay to pursue things outside of the four walls of your home, in spite of the new message that's trying to put women back in their place because there is a threatening message that men are taking. If women are successful, then men cannot be successful. It's a weird binary thought process, and it's scary and it's frightening. So please be aware of that, especially as we go into the political time. Be aware of the messages that are being taught and really use some critical thinking skills to remember who you are and who you need to be for not only your family and your community, but for yourself. So thanks for joining me today on She Became Visible. Bye-bye.